I hope you're all doing well. We, the Royal We, you can go ahead and look that up. We are going to play Farthest Frontier. I was playing Total War Warhammer 3. I don't think I did very well my last campaign. I had fun playing it, but I reached a point where it was kind of pointless to continue playing. I think I could have won eventually, but it would have been a slog. And I don't know if it was worth it to continue that slog. Maybe I'll get back to it one day. I'll certainly leave the option open, but for right now, I think we need a break. So we're going to play Farthest Frontier. The game is now in 1.06, which was released just recently, probably in the last day or two. You can see that in the corner there. Oh, can you not see my... you can't. Interesting. You can't see my mouse. I can see my mouse. You can't see my mouse. I turned the volume down a little bit so you can hear me talking a little bit better. We're going to go ahead and start a new settlement. I've played this game quite a bit since early access. Early access. I've probably got, I would say, 300 or 400 hours into this game by this point. I think that's safe to say. I can look that up, but 300 or 400 hours is probably a safe bet. Part of the thing is the game does get a little bit lazy, I guess you can say. It is not a very active game. There's a lot of downtime where you can sit there and just watch your guys be happy. It's pretty good. It's pretty groovy. It's really relaxed, but it is difficult. The difficulty scaling in this game can get really high. We're going to go ahead and play on Trailblazer, which is the standard setting. We're going to make the map level large. We are not playing pacifist mode. And we're going to roll this until we get something decent. Mashfield, Valbury, Grundlewood. That's not bad. Grundlewood, Fodderdam, Snods Meadow. Do you remember Snosberry? Sounds kind of similar to Snosberries. Colorado. Colorado. Yeah. Bourbon Town. Lane Tree. Okay. Innsmouth. Lioness. Response to Lyonesse. Canterbury. Okay. Lane Tree again. Starvestead. No, I don't think that's very good. Dawn Stable. Cairnborough. A cairn is a place where you bury the dead. Loghoria. Wolverton. Nuremberga. Avalon. That'd be fun. Tombstone. Heronfort. New Arcovia. Meadowbrook. Glumden. Worcester. Roanoke. Dreadham. Valbury again. Stoneham. Raidersville. Groveland. Asphodel. Farmington. Mudsford. Shall we do a Mudsford? I think we're gonna do Mudsford. Mudsford it is.
Life can be harsh everywhere, but in the old world, there was no hope of it ever improving. When our crops failed, the ruling class would still collect the same share, leaving our children to starve. And if we had any coin to our name, the taxman would appear, demanding it for the crown. The nobles hid behind the safety of their walls and did nothing when raiders pillaged the outskirts of the city. And so, some of us decided that it was time to leave, that we'd rather take our chances in the wilderness, seeking the promise of a new land, than and starve to death in our homeland. The journey wasn't easy. We lost many along the way. But this wild, unsettled land offers us the hope of a new start as the masters of our own destiny.
All right. Last time I played this, I did not have a very successful game. Raiders came in, about 120 of them, about year 30 or so, and burned my entire city to the ground. Pretty rough. We will try and avoid that fate this time. I could have rolled and rolled and rolled in order to get a better direction that the Raiders were coming in, so that they would have to pass by my fort in order to get in to the city center and burn it to the ground. But I don't know if it was worth it. Typically speaking, if I get to the point where Raiders burn my city center to the ground, I consider that a loss. Town center. I already don't like this map. Oof. It's pretty tall mountains. Mountains can be very beneficial. Oh wow. A swamp over there. Swamps are okay because they give us access to roots for medicinal roots. That's a decent lake. There's another swamp there. I'm gonna re-roll. I do not like how close we are to the mountains there. We are not playing on a mountain map. Thank you. Like that seed just happened to be one with mountains right there at the start. We're playing a large map though. We shouldn't need to start out with a mountain right next to us. Mountains are great for resources. Iron, gold. I wish there was copper in this game. There isn't. It'd be nice if there was copper and tin and you could make bronze. There isn't. You go from the Stone Age directly to the Iron Age. Like, you're already in medieval times, obviously. You're in actually late medieval times, and we know that because there's a clock tower that you can build. Clock towers didn't come in to existence until like 1650, 1700. So we know this has to be late Middle Ages, early Renaissance. Some parts of the world, of course, reached the Renaissance earlier than others. Oh, that's a large lake. Decent sized mountain, but it's not occupying great portions of the map. Is that? Oh, it's stone. I also don't like the raider camp that was right near where we began. There's some clay there. If there's sand, there is sand. My last game, there was no sand. I eventually found sand. Like I said, on a big enough map, you're going to find everything you need. But it was so far away from my village center, and I had to get really close to raiders to get it, that it was pretty late in my game before I had access to it. We're going to go ahead and go with this map. Where are our people milling about? I want to see where the map wanted us to center ourselves. I don't see. Maybe we don't need to be at the center. Okay, we're just gonna go with this. As long as we're in this valley, anywhere would have been good. The first thing I'm going to do is move this a little bit away from our building site. And then let's harvest some resources. They're going to use the storage cart to keep the resources in. Anybody that's played Banished, of course, you're going to recognize this game immediately. 75 is the longest you can get a road. Your people will prioritize building roads over just about anything else, so you've got to be really careful with how you want your roads laid out, because when you put them down, they will stop working on other projects in order to build roads. And like I said, anybody that's played Banished, I've never played Banished ever. I have a friend of mine that has, and he said the same exact thing exists in Banished. Let's leave a little bit of room. They've changed some things about this game. I'll explain as we go along. Some aesthetic things have changed. Perhaps for the better, perhaps for the worst. Regardless, it takes some getting used to on how the new changes affect the gameplay. Let's build our houses. No, we cannot. We don't have that. We're gonna put this down. Like I said, anybody that's played Banished will recognize this game. It's more difficult than Banished. There are raiders in this game. I don't think there are raiders in Banished. My first playthrough that I was playing on this channel was Aska, and I mentioned that Aska is very much like three-dimensional Farthest Frontier. They are very similar in the way that you build. Obviously, this one is a lot faster. You build town center right at the beginning. And you have a lot of villagers that you start out with and blah, blah, blah stuff. Aska, of course, you start out with just yourself. And you have to summon people to join your village at 10 to 7 minutes. Similar gameplay, different experience. It's not just 3D. It's not just 3D, the Farthest Frontier, in other words. Like I said, they just priorities building that road. But in this case, it's okay, because we need them to chop down trees so we can have that town center built. So it's okay to tell them to build roads. We just want to watch it. So if anybody knows their history, this is very definitely not Europe like it looks Europe. The game creators may have even intended it to be Europe, but there was really no open available land in Europe that anybody could claim. Yes, I understand. We need firewood, or winter we'll get frostbite. You can read that on your own if you want to pause. It's not important. I know it all. It's not important for me. It's not important for this current playthrough to read that. Like Europe, pretty much by 1650, 1700, which would be the time when this game can take place, with the fact that there are clock towers in it. There was nowhere in Europe that you could claim and you could just put a village down. Yes, if you play on higher difficulty, if you play on Vanquisher difficulty, you are squatting on a lord's land, and they don't like that, and they will try and exact punishment upon you.
Work to be done?
We're not doing that. We're not doing that. Let's even that out. And then we can put right there. So, there's no place in Europe, really, that you could have claimed a valley like this, with access to water, places where you could farm, and you could just put down roots and start building a town center. All the land was claimed in Europe by the lords. There was really no place you could spread out like this. There is, however, a place very near Europe where you could have European-style buildings, where you could have people from Eastern Europe, very certainly, get to where they could just build a village with nice flat lands near mountainous resources, water resources and everything, and that is the Pontic-Caspian steppe. So if you know what the Pontic-Caspian steppe is, it is northern Ukraine, southern Russia. There are these vast fields of wilderness land like this. You go back to the Stone Age, or the early Bronze Age, sorry. You go back to the Bronze Age, and there are these Bronze Age mega cities that used to exist in, let's get some more wood going. We need wood. Thank you very much. We need wood. There were definitely, like these mega cities, like what we call, that used to exist on the Pontic-Caspian steppe, where people first domesticated horses. The Yamnaya culture is probably the most famous one, and that's because the DNA of most Europeans comes from the Yamnaya of the Pontic-Caspian steppe. And so they are almost certainly conquerors that killed and displaced the native people of Europe with themselves. That is most likely why everybody in Europe all the way to India speaks the same root language. It is the largest language family on Earth, which is which is the Indo-European language. Proto-Indo-European, or PIE, as it is called, was originally developed by the Yamnaya, almost certainly, and they took it to Europe when they developed horseback riding, and they simply conquered all of Europe. They invented horseback riding and wagons, and nobody could fight against that. People on horseback just kill you. And so imagine what that must have been like for the people of Pontic-Caspian steppe that got to take over the world. To extend our road, we are doing straight lines. I do not like a game where all the lines are straight. It's boring, but the main streets, especially an early medieval settlement, and I don't mean early medieval like a period of time, I mean it's in its early stages of a settlement. A settlement in its early stages of being built would almost certainly have straight lines at the very beginning. We can imagine that there's perhaps somebody among these people that knows basic surveying enough that they can get some. Try and find that lake. That they can get fairly straight roads. Let's build this up here. want to build it away from our town because as you can see, there is a red around it. That means that, as you can see, it gives -2 to all the housing desirability. -3 if it's right next to it. -9 if it's on top of the house. Which makes no sense. But we just want to keep a lot of these buildings away from our city center. This one also has a negative, so you can see it's got a -2 or -4, depending on where it is. People don't want to live next to a smokehouse, so we'll keep that up here as well. Yes, that means that people have to walk all the way from here, all the way to here to do their work, but we aren't really worried about that in the early game. Distance traveled is not too high yet. That is a poor place to put a well. Like we will if we have to, but we'll make them cross the street. Cut down trees, boys. Want to eat? Cut down trees. We can lose people in the first year. I typically don't. But we certainly can. Wolves exist in this game that can kill your people. Bears, we do not want to see bears. There's the lake. We're already right by the lake. We already knew that. But I didn't realize exactly where it was because of how we moved our camera around. More people want to join. If you have 4 months supply of food and 6 houses, people will join. We only have 4 houses that we've even scheduled, so we can't have people join yet. Most likely what'll happen is if we have extra space where people can fill in when this house is completed, for example, we'll have babies born. And that just magically happens. The people don't pair off. Like you don't see like Mr. and Mrs. Smith that pair off. We have Kadar here. And we have Alta here. You can make changes to people's names. And
What
they
needs
will
doing?
appear in later games. So if you want to, you can change this guy's name from Kadar to Smurf Jr. And as you play the game in another playthrough even, doesn't even need to be this particular game, you'll run into a guy named Smurf Jr. because you added his name to the name cards. Oh boy. It's ready to go. You just need a laborer. We have the stone, we have the wood, we just need the labor. As I said, people prefer to build roads. Look at this road. It needs to be built. Like I said, we got to be careful with how we build our roads. Because that will prioritize roads over anything else. Oh, somebody's building it. We're going to have water. These guys won't be dead. There we go. Now they have access to water. We're hoping that they get firewood soon. We have to have all of this stuff done before winter. They only have 2 months of food left, so this is got to. So you gotta build that. The other thing that we need to build is forager sack. Let's put it down, but not enable construction yet. We need the smokehouse and the hunter's site, and especially the firewood. first. They are hacking away at that rock. You start with a limited number of tools at the beginning of the game. You see us, we have 20 tools. That used to not be the case. You used to start off with 0 tools. The people would work, but they would work at like reduced speed. I don't remember what it was. But they give you tools now. And each of the people, I think, has tools. Yeah, they start with tools. So they'll only grab extra tools when the tools they have wear out. Our storage unit is done. That means we can build the other storage units, which is the storehouse and the root cellar. We can't build the storage depot yet because we don't have a storehouse. Storage depot is like a miniature storehouse. That's all it is. Smaller storehouse. People are chopping wood. I think there are no more roads for them to build, so the only thing they can do now is chop wood and build buildings. I understand, critically low on firewood, nothing we can do. We just gotta get that building built. Chop those trees, chop those trees, chop those trees. Chop those trees. Right now, I think everybody we have is a laborer. Yeah, we have one builder. What's he building? No, I think he's just delivering.
Hello there?
Ooh, Alana. She is putting supplies in the building foundation. Fish. So yeah, so this game, during the 1600s, 1700s especially, nobody lived in these vast open areas of northern Ukraine and southern Russia. What caused the people to leave that area is not really known. I don't think you can come up with any one single answer why people left the Pontic-Caspian steppe for places in Europe and in Asia Minor, and of course further east like Transoxiana, Middle East down south. Of course, they built up those areas and largely abandoned these large open fields, these open plains where people used to hunt and run and gather and have their horses and everything. They just sort of abandoned the area. Maybe it was lack of something very simple like salt. Maybe it was access to food resources, like perhaps when people began large-scale farming, they chose places with woods to cut down, with trees that you could chop down to build your homes out of, and so they left the Pontic-Caspian steppe and went to places in Europe where they could cut the trees down for fuel and housing. Maybe that's why. I'm just throwing stuff out. I don't actually know. I'm sure that there are people that research this heavily, and I'm sure that there are many theories as to why they abandoned the area. But there are these large cities with religious holy sites built in them, and foundations for either housing or tents or like longhouse structures or whatever they were building in the area. I have no idea. I'm just throwing longhouses out. Whatever it was that they were building in the area to live in was largely abandoned by the time of the Middle Ages. So there was these large open areas of land that people could just plop down a city if you wanted. Nobody was going to stop you. But there were local lords, certainly, that would claim areas, and they were corrupt. They were awful. They also lived far away,
What is it?
Hunter, seeking weapons. Okay, good. We've got our hunter hut. Our work areas, this is where we select our work areas, and we can select our work area around these, so we can see there's deer here. There's also deer sighted here, but I don't see where. They light up when you hover over them. Same thing happens when you hover over wolf dens. Same thing happens when you hover over boar sighted. There are boar dens now. They've added boar dens into the game that didn't exist before. It is now a thing. This is pretty good. We've got willow bush. We've got some medicinal roots, patch of herbs. We definitely want to exploit this area. I didn't even realize that was there. Haha, our guy's done. Stalking fire woodshell splitter.
Hello.
See him walking there. Camus. Hi, Camus. There's another deer sighted up here, so here's in the bushes. I think we're getting close enough. We can turn this off. We definitely want to get this going before winter sets in. We already have a food source. We already have a hunter. We will be able to get through the winter. One of the complaints that I have about this game is that it takes absolutely freaking forever for them to butcher meat. So he's carrying his carcass with him. You can't see it, obviously. Then he'll sit there and he'll go to work, and they're not going to show you blood, guts, and gore, so he's just going to sit there and, waggle his knife back and forth and get meat out of it. Doesn't need to be ultra realistic. There's some things we don't want to see. I'm just exploring the area, by the way. Covering some of the dark. We don't want to select a space too far away. Like, we could come over here and tell them to go all the way up here. You can see on the map, I'm all the way in the corner. We can definitely tell them to come out here, but there are raider camps now in the game. They didn't used to be. So, as you're walking around and wandering around in the wilderness, you'll find raider camps. But yeah, so imagine these people living in northern Ukraine, southern Russia, and they could have fled from Hungary, somewhere in Eastern Europe. They could definitely take a wagon, pile people in it. There's only 12 people here, and they did say they traveled quite a ways and suffered several hardships along the way. You could definitely grab a group of people, go out into the wilderness, and found a city in northern Ukraine in 1650, 1700. Nobody would have stopped you. We have run out of food. People are carrying food, so they're not going to starve to death.
Hello there.
So people do have their starting food that they began with, but we're going to have to get these people working so that we have access to food. Right now, of course, everything's getting loaded in the storage. There's a bit of food that's been put in there. Somebody grabbed some. I suspect it was Dorna. Like I said, it's absolutely freaking forever for somebody to butcher meat. It's been like a month, boy. You can see the months here. Right. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Looks like a full year. So we are in, if that's January, and it doesn't say, February, March, April, May, June. Could we be in July? I don't think autumn starts in August. So if that's September, maybe October, November, December, January, February, March, maybe that makes a bit more sense to people. April, May, June, July, August. So maybe it's August right now. I don't know. It's wishy-washy. I don't think it's terribly important. We sent somebody up here. They found some iron ore. Not much, but there's some. There's also some here next to our town. We're going to exploit that later. That is a lot of clay. That is a crap load of clay. I'm going to try and swear less in my videos. There's a school of fish in the middle of a field. I think the game thinks that this is a lake. Maybe there's a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of water right there or something. That is hilarious. The leaves are starting to change, so maybe it's September. Couldn't tell you. Yeah, there's invalid placement. That means there's water right here. Oh, everything in yellow here is considered to be water. Even though it doesn't look like it, that's water. Whatever, man. So if there were people living out here in a place like this and they just settled land, they would have no access to salt. So one of the biggest concerns that they would have is how to get salt. And salt, of course, is for preservation of food. But beyond that, if you don't eat salt, you die. And I don't know what medieval people or ancient people knew about the health benefits of eating salt. They probably just knew they craved it. You're going to crave for stuff that keeps you alive. We can finally build this. I want a marketplace somewhere around eventually. Storehouse. We're just gonna pile all this stuff here. We can move all this stuff later. It's not important where we put it for the time being. Everything can be moved, even if it makes no sense. You can even move your main place, but you have to pay money to do that, and we don't have any. But the ones that really don't make sense is the wells. Like, how do you move a well? Like, I mean, yes, you can fill this up with rocks and dirt and build another well, but that's not what you do. You just, like, move the well. There's an old ruins. In order to get the ruins, we have to have a temple. Do we want to have a temple? It is a long ways away. We cannot build a shrine, even. Don't got money for that. Come on. I mean, yes, my people can survive eating nothing but deer meat. I think they would live for the winter. I'm saying that because I think that he can supply enough. I don't think that the game really cares what your people are eating, health-wise. Just that having access to enough deer meat for the winter, I think one hunter can keep 12 people alive. I would like to think so. Technology tree. This is brand new. Technology is not something that was in the game prior to 1.0. I think the game is still playing in the background while we're in this screen, so we're going to try and get this done quickly. Nope. Nope. Where's the one that gives us more? No. Natural philosophy. So 20% faster knowledge generation. So we're taking that. Like, of course we're taking that. Why would we take something else? First thing I want is more memories faster. More technology faster. Let's do that. I'm not gonna do it. I was gonna say we could get fishing going, but it's so close to winter. That'll freeze over. You won't get any more fishing. They are waiting for me.
Need something?
Oh, they're cooking their private home meal. That's new. They didn't used to do that. Desirability. So you can read this if you want on your own time. I already know about how desirability works. There are some things that don't affect desirability, and you can, if your desirability on a building goes too low, you can move it to a place of higher desirability and save that structure. Usually what happens is if the desirability gets too low on a building, I just tear it down. Rebuild on the same spot. Yes.
Need anything?
Get working, you draw. Get working. Move faster. Get those legs pumping. So I'd like to imagine, anyway, that these are Eastern European people who have fled to northern Ukraine, do not speak the language of the people that are here. Stick with each other for the first couple of years as migrants move in from areas around northern Ukraine and southern Russia in order to build up their population, and they eventually adapt. That's what I'd like to believe. That's my headcanon for where this takes place, because it doesn't make any sense in Europe. There's no places like this in Europe where there was unsettled land that you could just pop a city down and live. Like, if you did that, there would be a lord on your doorstep in 15 minutes going, "Hi, this is my land, no squatting here." And as I said, Vanquisher mode does have that setting. But even on Vanquisher mode, if you assume that setting, it's more likely still that this is Ukraine. Because there were lords there that would show up at your doorstep too. Just because you're in a place that's sparsely populated doesn't mean a lord's not going to show up. So, I'd like to think that these guys are getting salt from somewhere, and it's just not part of the game. You can follow animals and see where they go to get their salt. Maybe that there's a underground resource of salt. Maybe there's a salt dome. I don't know what the geology of the area is like. I'm a geologist, but I don't know the area. Southern Russia. Hi. What is the geology of southern Russia? I do not know, sir. I do not know the geological history of the area. If you're near the Caspian Sea, I assume that there's enough salt in the Caspian Sea that you could at least boil somehow. It's not very salty. Caspian Sea is really not salty at all. Not compared to the ocean, certainly. But I think there is some brine in it, and enough that you could theoretically boil off enough water that you'd get salt. And there certainly would be a salt trade going through an area like this. People would have access to salt. And you are out of food.
Need anything?
What the frickin' hell are you cooking for? Go gather food! Dear God. Woman. Because in
Need
1
anything?
month, you're going to be going home for the winter, and the only person that's going to be out during the winter is the hunter, who is forever butchering meat. It's all on you, girl. You are the one upon which we rely for our ability to survive 20, 23, 25, 28. Go, girl, go! You are the best. Saving the whole village. Yeah, you can carry a surprising amount. These berries are what's going to get us through the winter. I mean, yes, I think maybe this guy could pull us through. Like, nobody's going to starve to death. They are going to get hungry, but they're not going to starve to death. Does that make sense?
What needs doing?
And lady, you are actually pulling through for us. And the light turned off, whatever you want to call it, because she has gotten through the building. Shelter
Yes.
stocking. Because you have forever shelter stocking. There's a lot of stone. We're digging up stone rather than wood. What does it look like? Yeah, like there's wood there to chop. People are gonna go into their homes in a bit. It's almost winter. 3 months of food. Thank you, berry lady. Thank you, berry lady. You saved everybody. You saved them all. They will eat raw meat, by the way, so we've got to do what we can to encourage them not to. But they will eat raw meat, and it can make them sick. And they'll do that if there's no other available food. So we want to prevent that by trying to get them to make enough smoked meat to keep the people healthy at the end of the day. Not very much firewood. I assume the houses have stock. So I assume that nobody's going to freeze to death the first winter. Do you need firewood? Or do you need meat? No food there. No food there. And you are endlessly butchering meat forever and forever and forever. This guy's older than I am. 51 years old butchering meat. What would it be like at 51 years old to leave your home and family, or maybe he took his family, maybe his family is the other 11 people here. I don't know. But to leave your home and your village at the very least and go out in the wilderness and try and build a community at 51 years old. Fairy lady has saved us. And the berries still exist. There are a few. I'm going to alter this a little bit so she may get those berries. Berries existing this late in the year is just nonsense. We'll take it, but it is nonsense. I don't think there's a berry bush in the world that would survive in the winter like this.
Hello there?
She's seeking shelter, so she's in her little hut. She's going to stay there permanently. The only person that's active in the winter is the hunter, and he is forever and forever butchering meat. Yes, he has been like 68, which is, he's got these 2 deer. That's good. He's killing 2 deer. We started out with a certain number of arrows, but he does need arrows to hunt. And if you come here and you see we have 70 arrows, so when he runs out of his 70 arrows, that's it.
Hello there.
We have to make more. That is a badass, though. Gee whiz. Trying not to swear. Like 51 years old, coming out here, living in the winter. I mean, look at this guy. He's living on his own in this house. Like, I mean, sure, like it's what, 1,000 feet away? Still, it's 1,000 feet away. He's out here all day butchering. Maybe somebody visits him once in a while. Maybe he goes into town during the evening times and we're just seeing what he's doing during the day. That's probably the truth.
Hello.
Well, it's winter time. They're gonna rest until about whatever that is, the end of December, beginning of January, and then they start leaving and doing some chores. Oh, they're already starting.
Need
Get
something?
them clothes. They start out with clothes and hide coats, but we're gonna eventually have to make those things. Like somebody built a church on top of this hill. It's pretty neat. And that's where I'd build a church, where everybody can see it. Imagine what the salt trade must have been like. The people in northern Ukraine. I mean, the Black Sea's not far away, so there's salt there. And that is directly linked to the ocean. Through the, what's it called, strait? The Bosphorus. So it's linked to the Mediterranean from the Bosphorus, and the Mediterranean is linked to the ocean by the Strait of Gibraltar. And if you're a geologist like me and you've taken oceanography, you'll learn that water doesn't mix in the ocean. Like we think that you pour a bucket of water in the ocean and it just immediately becomes part of the ocean, but that's not the case at all. You can actually follow where water comes from and where it goes in the ocean based on salinity and temperature. So there is a lot of evaporation coming off of the Mediterranean Sea. So obviously there's a lot of evaporation over the entire ocean, but the rate of evaporation in the Mediterranean is higher than the natural refresh rate of the Mediterranean. The rivers and canals and creeks and rainfall in the area of Europe and the Levant and northern Africa is not enough to supply the Mediterranean Sea with all the water that is evaporated off every day, right? That water input from rivers and streams going into the Mediterranean is less than the evaporation off. And so water is pouring into the Mediterranean from the ocean through the Strait of Gibraltar. That is probably a really wicked current right there. And if you were to sail west through the Strait of Gibraltar, it's probably just pushing against you the whole way. I imagine. Don't actually. Taking a break. You have nothing to do, lady. You have saved us all, though. Thank you for the food. He will take it from here.
What needs doing?
It's too cold out. The laborers have gone indoors. So that that water that is going out, so you can imagine the water is coming in on the high end, like, and I don't remember which direction it is, like the top layer of the Mediterranean is going east from the ocean, filling the basin of the Mediterranean, and water from the Mediterranean is going out on the bottom layer. It's not a one-way street, even though, as I said, the Mediterranean is evaporating off more water than it's getting from rivers and streams. That doesn't mean that there isn't an exchange of water. There is an exchange of water. You push water into the basin of the Mediterranean from the Atlantic Ocean, and some of that water is going to backfill back into the Atlantic Ocean, right? There's an exchange of water, and so I think the top layer is probably going east, and the bottom layer is probably going west. I could be wrong. Switch it up. Not sure. It could be that the Mediterranean is going west into the ocean, and the bottom layer is going east into the Mediterranean. I would have to look it up. Maybe it even exchanges throughout the day or even throughout the year. Could be based on lunar cycles, like the tides. It's entirely possible. It could very well act like a tidal channel. I have no idea. Like a tidal bore may go through that channel every day. I have no idea. I'd have to look it up. But the case is that there is an exchange of water that goes back and forth between the Atlantic Ocean into the Mediterranean, and that's why the Mediterranean exists, and from the Mediterranean back into the Atlantic, because there's a backflow of water. You're not going to fill a basin and have it just go one way. And I think our boy here has produced more meat, which has saved the village. We got nothing. We got smoked meat and a few berries. Policies. I don't really change the policies at all. Like, you can read this if you want. You can check the policies though. Where are the policies? They might be here. So there are different civics, like we can do rationing so that they consume less food but our happiness is reduced. We're going to go ahead and set that off the first year. Like I said, I don't do this, but let's just figure it out for the first year, just so that we can say, hey, we did something. And it makes sense. Your first year, you got no food. Rationing makes sense the first year. But like I said, I don't normally do that. I'm doing it today because it's a special video. So anyway, that backflow of water from the Mediterranean into the ocean can be tracked, because that water is high salinity. There's a lot of salt in it, and the reason why is it's constantly evaporating off, right? So what's left is this high salt content. But it's not like a it's not like a dry basin where water would go into it and then it evaporates off and leaves behind all the salt. That salt is going back out into the ocean, and you can track it. You can actually go into the ocean and put a depth gauge or a water gauge into the water at different depths, and you can see that there is this depth of water throughout the Atlantic Ocean that is high salinity and warm, because it's warm water when it comes out the Mediterranean. So this high salinity warm water is coming off the Mediterranean and comes out the ocean. Pretty neat, huh? And we're going over a hill, but it's a mile, so you don't know too much about it. Not like this thing. This thing is just like, we're gonna build around that. We're gonna probably build around this way. We're building this so that we can do two things. Thing one. We're in our second year. We're in February. February. We're in month 1. No, not resources. We want a fishing check. And we want a forager shack. Did we get another technology? We did. Nope. Why not? Like some of these early ones are kind of irrelevant. I like that shoal of fish right there. It's so hilarious. Of course, we have to have a well. And the reason why is because if these two places don't have a well nearby, they start getting sick. Look at dehydration. And good old Yigra is saving their lives. So the same thing happens in different parts of the world also, like the Arctic, for instance. So the Arctic has a bit of a different situation. What's happening in the Arctic? Like, let's just take the northern Arctic. The same situation exists on the ice sheets on the Southern Ocean, but Antarctica has a big land mass there, so the conditions aren't quite the same. But the ice sheet that covers the water is the same, Arctic or Antarctic, doesn't matter which, but let's talk about the Arctic. So the Arctic Ocean, when it freezes, water that has ice in it freezes at a lower temperature. The salt in the ice prevents the water from freezing. It has to be like -4 degrees Celsius in order to freeze water with ice in it. Because the ice is preventing that water from freezing. So what happens actually at the top layer of the water, so you just have water, it gets to be freezing temperature, 0 degrees Celsius. It gets down to -1 degree Celsius. It's still not freezing because there's salt in the water. It gets to -2 degrees Celsius and it begins to freeze. And I know what I just said about salt preventing it from freezing at -4. But what is happening is the top layer is starting to form crystal structure and it's pushing the salt down. So that very, very top thin layer begins to form a tiny thin layer of ice, and the salt is forced down into a lower layer of water. And then the next layer begins to freeze at -2 degrees, and it pushes it down. The average is -4, but it doesn't all freeze at once. It freezes in layers. And so it may even be -4 that it reaches, but it probably begins about -2. It gets to a point, though, that it can't keep pushing salt down as easily, and it starts to freeze anyway, regardless of the salt content it's in, because it just gets so cold. Like, if it's -20 degrees outside, it's gonna freeze, even if it's full of salt. So that layer of salt, though, is still getting pushed down layer by layer by layer by layer by layer, right? Because that edge where the ice is forming, that lattice structure of ice, that crystal structure that it forms when the hydrogen and oxygen bonds begin to form crystal structure, it is still forcing the ice out. It will trap ice. It will force salt out. It will trap salt in that lattice structure. Yes, but it will also force some of it out. So what's happening is, as the layer is freezing down and down and down and down and down, it's getting saltier and saltier as it goes down. And if you think that maybe, I don't know, the first 2.5 feet of ice forms, perhaps, the water below that 2.5 feet is saltier than it was yesterday before it began to freeze, right? And I don't know what the percentage is. 20%, 5%, 300%, 2%. Name a percent. I don't actually know. I don't remember. It was probably in my textbook, but I don't remember. We're gonna try and get some of these greens. What we're really after are these willow bushes. But the greens, we want them too. So the water in the Arctic is similar to the water from the Mediterranean. The Mediterranean water is warm and salty, and that's because the evaporation rate is higher than the refresh rate of the Mediterranean, and the only way the Mediterranean stays as ocean water at all is because of the Strait of Gibraltar. You close off the Strait of Gibraltar and it becomes a desert, and we have evidence that it was a desert like 1 million years ago, when the Strait of Gibraltar was closed. So it was a desert. It was a below sea level desert. That must have been just fascinating to see. But the Strait of Gibraltar broke open, and it's been an ocean ever since. It must have been a rush of water, like a crazy waterfall, as ocean water just filled that basin. Gosh, everything in that area died. Everything in that area drowned. If there were little bunny rabbits living on the shore of the Mediterranean when it was a lake, they just drowned, man. There's no way they're getting away from this wall of water coming at them at 1 billion miles an hour. Like, it just flooded. And there must be really amazing geology underneath the water there. We've got 12 months of food now. We have a small population, and just a little bit of food and a little bit of greens goes a long way for our population right now. So let's build some houses and get some more people moving in. Let's build this up. We can. Do it. Like I said, straight lines are boring. This is the way people build roads. They build roads to go, oh, let's connect this road to that road. They don't think to themselves, hey, let's build this road so that we can have a maximum number of packed houses. That's not the way people build cities. Let's leave a space in between so we can build some 6. Yeah, no, let's build 6. Because I like decorations. We're planning ahead. We'll get these decorations here to have a little cool pathway right here, but we can't do that yet because we have no gold. We will eventually. We have our food storage. Root cellars go back hundreds of years, maybe even thousands of years. People have been building root cellars. That one is the whole community root cellar. I imagine everybody has a small root cellar in their houses, but you don't actually see it. These little wooden boxes and little things, little cooking pot and some barrels and a pail. And it's kind of neat how that house doesn't look the same as this house. Like there's a wheelbarrow there. There's not a wheelbarrow there. There's some seeds or some grain or something. Different. Every house is different. It just is neato. Neato burrito. Let's get our... Yes, our saw pit. Let's to get going soon. Let's first tell our people to get more wood. More wood. Take this. Just trees, mostly bushes. Let's take this forest and eradicate it. 'Cause that's how we are. I just thought of something dumb. We're gonna move this down 1. We're gonna move this down 1, and then we're gonna connect from here to here. Just so streets meet up. So the water in the Arctic is salty and cold. So if you put your instrument in the water and you put it to a certain level of the ocean and you look in to see what the salinity level of the ocean is like, you can tell the difference between water that came from the Mediterranean and water that came in from the Arctic. Even though the salinity level of both is going to be high, the temperature is going to be different. So that's a thing. And you're like, well, it just all mixes. It does not mix. It takes thousands of years for the ocean water to mix. We can track water from the Mediterranean on the ocean floor for just hundreds of years old that this water takes to travel across the ocean. It's brilliant. It's amazing. Yeah, it does not mix. Like, it seems like it should, right? Yeah, but it doesn't. Because it's way more complicated than that. We're just, oop. Yes, salvage that, prioritize. Let's get some workers on that. There are resources in there. You'll get stuff like gold. You'll get stuff like clothing, possibly food. I wouldn't eat food that's been in a rut for 10 years, but you know, smoked meat maybe, beef jerky. Don't know. Animals, I would assume, would get to it, but I don't remember what's in these things. I think it's mostly like clothing, tools, weapons, that sort of thing. We definitely want to salvage that as soon as we can. That means that our people that we're sending out to explore are reduced. Because we have prioritized several of the people to go work on that. We do not have a very high number of villagers, people, so it's going to take a while. Prioritizing them roads. So yeah. Then there is like difference between the Pacific water, difference between the Arctic water, the Atlantic water, and you can see the different salinity levels, the different temperatures, where the water is moving to come from, and it's amazing. I don't know how I got that on that subject, but regardless. I think I was thinking about the Black Sea, the water coming through the Bosphorus, and then from the Mediterranean. It's fascinating stuff. Geology is cool. That's oceanography specifically. But yeah, we can track water, where it comes from, where it goes. We can monitor what it's made of, and by that I mean the different mineral levels. There is some question, for example, on whether we can reverse climate change by seeding the ocean with iron. The reason why that's a possibility of a thing is because the deep ocean, like if you go out into, and I don't mean deep like you're deep underwater, I mean like the water level depth is deep, but you're on the surface of the ocean. So if you are over the Atlantic Ocean and you're not over the continental shelf, or you are over the Pacific Ocean west of Argentina, where it just drops off because there's a subduction zone right there, so there's a trench. When you're over ocean, like further west of that, It's like a desert. There's almost nothing living out there at all. Like you can definitely put a bucket down and pull up microscopic little organisms living there, but it's almost devoid of fish, almost devoid of mammals. Like everything lives close to the shore because that's where the food that the gotta check that out. Oh, wolf. Oh, I think we lost a villager. I don't think he can survive. Nope, one more hit and you're dead. And there's no way to heal him. So
What
you can
needs
take it to a
doing?
healer, her, Wenlin. I can take her to a healer, but we don't have a healer. And we cannot afford a healer. A healer is amenities right here. First of all, we can't build one. We don't have any of the requirements. But it requires 100 gold, and then it's 25 gold per month. And our gold income is 0. We have no way of reviving her. She's going to die. So, oh, Wenlin. There's another. Another lake up there. Oof.
Okay then.
You gotta kill that wolf. Bare fists, I do not care. Wolf's gotta die. Hey buddy, wolf pelt right there.
Yes?
And our deer have fled. I'm gonna have to move him up like here. He's going to gather that wolf pelt, and you can see right here, wolf pelt has 2 pelts and 20 meat. I imagine though that's kind of neat. Somebody gets to wear a wolf pelt. Maybe our hunter himself. Maybe that's what's on his back. That cool pelt. Maybe that's what that is. We definitely need more wood. I'm sorry, Wenlin. You're dead. Sorry. We're gonna have to build a cemetery. Let's build it right here. We do not have 100 stone to build it, but we will. Just sitting out there in the hot sun, waiting to die. There's death in the village. The things you learn by listening to my channel. But yeah, so there is this idea that the Middle Ocean is just lifeless. The fish don't go out there to eat because there's no plankton out there. The plankton don't eat because there's no coccolithophores or foraminifera or radiolarans or whatever it is that they feast upon. There is very little algae out there, so there's not much for them to eat. There's upwelling and downwelling. I'm not going to go too much into that. That depends on certain interactions of the ocean current and the land current and the cyclonics, and like I can get into like depths of stuff. But right now, the most important thing to know is that our villager died, and it will attract vermin and disease. So build a graveyard. We are building a graveyard for our dead, deceased friend. Villager has died. Villager has succumbed to wounds from battle when they were dead. It's 21 years old. We will try and keep the deaths down, but no guarantee. Life is harsh in the wilderness. Cooking, that's new. That is so new.
What needs
Something like
doing?
that. 46. By adding iron to the ocean, and rather than iron filings, it's probably better to dissolve iron in water, and then firewood, pottery, and linen, soap. Yep. Rather than iron filings, it probably would be better to dissolve iron into water, and water will accept a certain amount of iron into it, and then distribute that into the ocean. Just pour it in, and that would encourage algal blooms to bloom out in areas of the ocean where algae typically doesn't bloom because it's far away from shore. Because what people don't realize is it's more than just sunlight and water and carbonate. Like, the ocean is supersaturated in carbonate. Do you know what supersaturation is? Where you have, like, if you do this experiment, you can do it in your home. Take a pot of water, fill it up, put salt in it until it won't take any more salt, so you can't stir in any more salt. So the salt is collecting on the bottom of the pot of water because it can't hold any more salt. And then you raise the temperature. Well, now it can accept more salt. So then you pour more salt in until it can't accept any more salt. And then you lower the temperature back down. But if the pot sides are completely clear, so it's a smooth metallic surface, and you've got no scratches or anything like that from years of wear, so it's a brand new iron or steel pot. Most likely you'd want to use stainless steel pot. If it's brand new and there are no places where the salt can latch onto the side of the pot to dissolve out of the pot, there's no area of nucleation. There's no way that the salt can dissolve out of the water. It has to have a point where it's called nucleation, where it can bond with other salt particles in order to get out of the water. It's what's called supersaturated, and it's really amazing. You can take a single grain of salt and throw it into the pot, and then watch all of the grains of salt just instantly dissolve out of the water because it has a nucleation point, that one grain of salt that you throw in. And it's really quick too. It's really a fun experiment if you ever want to do it. You can probably look it up online. Supersaturated salt. I'm sure people have plenty of videos on YouTube. You can do it yourself. It's pretty fun. That's the condition the Earth is in on the entire ocean with carbonate. Carbonate rock breaks down so easily in water, and this carbonate, which is CaCO2, calcium carbonate, it dissolves in limestone, for example. It dissolves in water a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, a little bit at a time, and then that water gets into the river, and then the river takes that down to the ocean. Well, when it gets to the ocean, where's it going to go? It can't go anywhere. Gravity has taken it to the ocean, and that carbonate is now stuck. It can't dissolve out because it's surrounded on all sides by water. The ocean is so much water that being able to reach the beach where there is sand is a very tiny percentage loot acquired. So this is what we got. We got a book, which increases our knowledge gained. We got 98 wood planks, 25 iron, 3 tools, 2 shields, 3 crossbows, 29 linen clothes, and 144 gold ingots. That is absolutely why we wanted that. That second thing of labor, so we have filled that. We'll get that stuff later. Next, we will start worrying about these for farming. We want to get up to grain crops. We want to get to the animal rearing and stuff like that. So we're going to start going down this route. We don't need venting chambers yet. That's for burning coal. We are not gathering coal. Let us build this across there. So the nucleation points, the points where calcium carbonate can dissolve out of water on the ocean are at the bottom of the ocean, and like I said, it takes thousands of years to reach the bottom of the ocean. The shores of the ocean where the beach is, and again, it can take thousands of years to reach the beach. Yes, the river is crossing over the beach to get to the ocean, but gravity is just pulling that calcium carbonate down and pulling that calcium carbonate down, and it just flows into the ocean at breakneck speeds. And it reaches the ocean, and then it looks around and goes, now what? I'm stuck surrounded by water. My chance to dissolve out was way back there at the mouth of the river, and I am over the water. And there's no way to get the calcium carbonate out. And so every life form in the ocean uses this free calcium carbonate. It's just free. You need to do nothing to gather it. If you start forming your shell and you're a little coccolithophore, and you are building your little shells out of calcium, right? And carbon dioxide and whatever that you are pulling out of the water, the calcium, the carbonate. You are pulling it out, and you are able to make your little shells. We got 3 villagers immigrated, so we reached our goal. We didn't reach our goal, but some villagers did move in. We didn't get the one where it says 12 villagers have moved into your village. That's probably what it means. 6 houses and 4 food. So we will build another house. Nope. We can build decorations because we have 125 gold. We have no gold. But we got gold. Where'd our gold go? Whatever. I guess we had nowhere to put it, and so it just vanished into the ether. Seems like a bug. Oh, we got a fishing. Our fishing is almost done for the year. But we'll send her to,
Hi?
fishing. She's sorting. I don't know if she's sorting. Oh, should we send her to fishing sooner if she's not going to have enough time? We want her to have some work to do. Resources. We got 3 new villagers. Let's get a saw pit going. Let's connect this first. I know people are going to be like, road! They're going to start cutting down those rocks. Road. Just like that one. So, little planktons, little coccolithophores, little Radio Lauren's little little microscopic little single-celled animals are making their little shells out of calcium carbonate because it's free. It's all over the ocean. And so there's no reason why algae, for example, cannot grow in the middle of the ocean. It's got plenty of calcium carbonate. But you can't just make a life form out of calcium carbonate. You have to have other minerals. And one of the biggest minerals that is necessary for life is iron. And so the idea is that by seeding the ocean with iron, you give life the opportunity to bloom in the ocean, the deep ocean, surface of the deep ocean, where nothing currently lives. And so, hey, let's do this thing. Let's plant algal blooms out into the ocean, and then that will encourage fish populations to boom because they have food available, and so they breed, and we get a lot more fish, and then people can go fishing and they get more food. All you have to do is add iron. Well, one of the consequences of adding iron, because algae is a tiny microscopic plant, is it pulls carbon out of the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide is pulled out of the atmosphere in order for them to grow. And then they die. The bulk of them die, right? Most of them aren't going to be eaten by little planktons because algal blooms can be huge. And, you know, there's only so much stuffing your face you can do for the little planktons before the algae uses up all of its resources in the immediate area and dies, and then falls to the ocean floor, taking with it the iron that you used to grow the algae and the carbon dioxide that it pulled out of the atmosphere. So people have thought to themselves, well, why don't we just seed the ocean with iron in order to cause these algal blooms to take carbon out of the atmosphere, because we keep pumping carbon into the atmosphere. All we need to do is seed the ocean with iron. But what happens when you have water and oxygen? Because there's a lot of oxygen in the ocean, right? Water and oxygen and iron. What do you get? Iron, oxygen, and water equals rust. So what happens when you rust the ocean? When you turn the ocean to rust, what happens? We don't know the answer to that. We don't want to know the answer to that. What happens? Does the food web collapse in the ocean when you turn the ocean into rust? So people that have said the solution to global warming or climate change is clearly just to throw iron in the ocean. The consequence to that could be as bad or perhaps even worse than climate change. We don't know, and we don't want to know. We don't want to have to learn what happens when we start messing with our environment in ways we don't understand. We don't want to learn a harsh lesson where, oops, we just killed 10% of the life in the ocean because we turned it into rust, or 30% of life in the ocean, or 50% of life. Like, how bad could it be? We don't know. We don't want to learn. That is not a lesson that we want. Doing inventory, forager sat. Dropping off fish. Very
Aye.
good. Thank you for the fish. Thank you for the fish. We've got another one. Ooh. Oh, there it is. I was going to say they just stopped for the winter. But one thing I wish they had was I wish food stopped spoiling in winter. Like when it starts getting into this late autumn. Right? I wish that it would stop the spoilage of food. But it doesn't. I mean, and if we think about it, food does slow spoilage when it's in a refrigerator, but it doesn't stop spoilage being in a refrigerator. It simply slows it. And so we can assume that this is slowed but not stopped. But it's in a deep winter that, you know, I think it should for a month or two. December, January, Decennuary. Whatever this month is here, Decennuary. I think it should at least stop all food from decaying in Decennuary. I'm gonna have to eat soon. I've got to get a snack. I'm reaching a point where I've got to eat. So I'm gonna go ahead and say we are going to close it when the new month starts, which is right about now. I will come back to this game later. I think this is a great start to like Ratsylvania was the one that I got earlier. I mean, how could you not like Ratsylvania? I was re-rolling to get something that cool, but you know, you can't get that lucky twice. We've got what is our name? Mudsford. Got Mudsford. That's a fun name. Anyway, for now, I hope you enjoyed the conversation. Learning a little bit about geology, learning a little bit about the ocean. Cyclonics are pretty fun. The way that the ocean circulates and how that affects the shoreline and how that affects the food web and how that affects like so much that exists, the tides and everything like that is all affected by cyclonics. Like we could go over that quite a bit. Anyway, for now though, I think we're done. I need to get something to eat. I at least have to pick up a snack or else I'm going to pass out in the next hour. And I don't want to wait and see what happens in an hour. So I'm going to quit for now, get something to eat, keep myself healthy. I'll talk to you later. Thanks for watching this video. Bye-bye.